Hey everybody, welcome to the Blacklist, the show where we interview the elite. Today we have Anthony Howard. I'm so grateful that you can make it today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Perfect. So, for people that don't know you, right, this is their first time listening in.
Yep.
Who is Anthony and what does he do?
Yeah. I am known online as that HR guy.
Yep.
And so majority of my career has been in human resources. I grew up in on the south side of Chicago. If you were to close your eyes just for about, 5 seconds and you think about the most quintessential HR person that you've had in your life,
Yeah.
more than likely they didn't look like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I'm that HR guy.
Yeah.
I represent the underrepresented
Yep.
in such an important industry that is the gateway of experiences for people that look like me that choose corporate America as their way of life.
Right. Right.
Yep.
No, I think that's super powerful, and I think that's an important mission.
Mhm.
Why did you get into that?
Originally I wanted to be an elementary school teacher.
Yeah.
And I realized very early that the reward wasn't equal to what it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't practical for me.
Like money wise?
Money wise, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
They pay
and I
shit,
mean,
dude.
growing up, I never had to struggle for anything,
Hmm.
but I had lofty goals, and I didn't want to sign up for that, even though I wanted the impact. And so, I went off to college, and when I had my first experience with teaching, and realizing what it was all about, I was kind of lost because I was like, "Oh no, I'm not going to be a teacher anymore."
Yeah.
And I wind up literally, I flunked out. I flunked out of school. Like, I,
On
I was
purpose?
academic. Well, I don't know. I felt like everything was priority outside of school because
Yeah.
I was away from home, not with my grandmother anymore. I had experienced this freedom. I mean, yeah, I graduated or flunked out with a .8 GPA and came back to the city. Like, what the heck am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
And so I tried to enter corporate by myself, and I couldn't. I had to enter a program in order to get me networked and get me in front of a corporate employer. And then I just went along that route. And I always felt like I was good at customer service,
Yeah.
right? My grandmother worked as a telephone operator, so I kind of picked that up. And through customer service, I fell into employee benefits administration.
Yeah.
And then through that, I kind of pivoted into HR. What HR came in because now I'm teaching the grown folks.
Yeah. Yeah. You are.
Yeah, and actually, it's the nature of my business and in the facilitation of um, upscaling in human resources. I really tap into still that passion of teaching, but just differently, kind of bizarro. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the difference like when you're teaching, men versus like, kids at like elementary or something?
Oh yeah. Well, well, for kids, they are definitely very transparent about how they feel, where they want to go,
True.
everything. And it really wasn't the kids that detracted me. It was really the
Yeah.
parents, right, at the time. But the main difference with adults is that there there has to be a purpose on why they have to be intrinsically motivated in order to be receptive to you, right? And I think that's the unique thing about it is that I don't have to worry about in the people in the class. They have a goal, they have a reason for being there,
Yep.
and they're looking for you to provide that to them. So I think that's the primary difference. And with the kids, like, look, they're there because they have to be,
Yeah.
right? They have no choice,
Yep.
right? You got to go through this process in order to, kind of redeem your independence to be able to go out and, on your own. I tell them all the time, and they don't believe me. I didn't believe it. Like, growing up is a trap. You better embrace and enjoy that you don't have to pay all those bills, right?
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, because it's a difference.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. The moment everybody's like excited to grow up, and then the moment they grow up, they're like, fuck,
Yeah, just like, why did I want to rush
Yeah.
to do this, right? But also I'm a forever learner. Um, and I've always been naturally curious about learning new things.
Yeah.
And I think that's another attribute of me wanting to be a teacher that still is within me and in my upbringing, and that I pass on to others. Because I mean, I just don't believe in stagnation, like getting
Yeah.
comfortable. Like the only way that you can grow is to be uncomfortable. So that's where I really infuse into my service. It's more than just about the class. It's about a growth in mindset, so that you can be better not only for yourself, but as you're better for yourself, you're more effective for others.
100%.
Mhm.
And when someone, or a company or an individual or whatever is looking to hire you, like, what is the first thing that you do to kind of just take a look at like the HR department or kind of represent, maybe the unrepresented? Like, what is it that you do, and how does it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a couple things. One is I'm about HR in itself by its nature is in support of the company.
True. Yep.
Point blank,
Yeah.
right? Is in support of the strategy of the organization, and strategy is a nice, comfy word for money,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, from an HR standpoint, it is about solving that equation of having the right people, doing the right things at the right time, in the right way.
Yeah.
And if you lean into people, then HR is there for you to help solve that equation.
Right. I've had like recently, right? This because this week I've been in Vegas for like 3 4 days. I've interviewed a lot of people in kind of not in HR, but people that are helping out HR departments. And you know why? Like they keep telling me, like it does when you focus on the people, it does increase the bottom line.
It does.
And most people, I'd say, well, maybe not most people, but like when I first thought of it, I'm just like HR is like if you have complaints. I feel like
Yes,
it's like
reaction, putting
yeah,
out fires,
exactly.
right?
Putting out fires, you're fired.
No,
Yeah, but it's
yeah,
not.
it's
It's a
not.
yeah.
No,
So talk about that because most people, I think, have a misconception of what HR is and what it does.
yeah, that is so important. So, a part of my vision with HR Certified is to um, in, to diversify the space. But to diversify the space, you need to um, attack it from two different angles. One of them is by addressing the industry as it is through the upskill and attraction of non-traditional talent.
Yeah.
But also the other thing is to attract the next generation and to meet them where they are.
Yep.
I just opened up a TikTok about 4 or 5 weeks ago. It took me a long time to get there, and the reason why this is important is to that question is for people who are unfamiliar with HR, the descriptor that I always get is that you hire, you fire, you interview,
Yep.
and it's definitely much more dynamic than that. And so how I approach people with it is HR is is in support of the business. You have to be a business person first,
Yep.
and then after that, it is how do you drive that through people.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, when they're attracted to it, they're like, oh, I'm good with servicing employees. I'm good with customer service. And it's like if I interviewed someone and they said I remember interviewing for my first HR job, my HR assistant job, and I said, well, what makes you qualify for this? I'm like, I'm good with people. I
Yeah.
have great customer service skills. And they said, and when the interview was over, he said, don't you ever say that again. Don't you ever say that again.
They don't care about that.
No, they don't care about that. What they want to know is that your passion for people can translate to results through people.
Yeah.
That's a whole different equation,
Yeah.
right? Because at the end of the day, when there is a situation, when there is a fire, will you put the company more at risk because of of, of probably your affinity just towards the employee, your bias
Mm.
towards the employee versus um, looking at the entire situation
Yeah.
and really keeping your role in front of mind, which is strategy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Money.
Money,
Yeah.
money. I tell them all the time, just like, look, strategy is a nice cupcake word for how can I how can I increase the bottom line
Yeah.
through saving and or making more money. And to attract the clients, it is what's the unique way that you're going to engage your employees to be able to do that?
Yeah.
Because the nature of our environment has changed, especially since COVID.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Like for example, in another interview, they were saying like that you have to adapt to like new markets that are kind of coming in, like new like we're in a time right now where inclusion is like important. It's like a hot topic. And because of that, like business owners, some might be um adamant on like keeping things the way that they are.
Yep.
But they're missing out on you're selling to these people, to
Right.
especially to this new market, right? Where everybody's kind of included. And if you stay in your old ways, you're gonna die, not just because you're supposed to be selling to the new market and your employees are is that exact same, fucking
That's
market.
right.
Like,
Yes.
and people don't realize that. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't even realize it until like yesterday. And then today we're just diving into it, even more.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's very timely that you're asking this question. I just I'm just wrapping up a 3-part series on LinkedIn Live
Yeah.
about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
Yes, DEI, right?
Yep. And when people hear that term, people have different views of what it is about.
Yep.
And what I'm here to tell you that it is not about um, just one particular facet. It is a group of principles in which allows an employer to meet an employee where they are,
Yes.
right? So this is because I'm black, right? I'm a minority. I'm over 40. I may not look like it, yeah.
You're over
And
40?
yes.
What the I had no clue, dude. I'm gonna be honest, bro. You look like 27.
Oh, thank you. Look, I'm taking advantage of that so I can meet the young people where they are. I'm taking full advantage of it, right?
I think it's your
Um,
energy and everything, dude. Like,
well,
anyways,
yeah,
sorry.
but I think that's also what goes into my persona as that HR guy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of viewpoints on HR is that it's stuffy, it's tight,
Yep.
it's just like this lockbox that you don't know what's in it. And I'm looking, whatever that line is, I'm looking across it,
Yeah.
right? I'm showing up in areas and in places because that's the only way that I think is a unique way of attracting new talent, the next generation into the space. It's like, oh, he can do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm literally retired after 21 years of being in this space.
Yeah.
That I realized I had to exit and become an entrepreneur in order to address it appropriately
Right.
and in the right way. But back to that DEIB thing is that usually there's just there, especially in our highly politically charged environment right now, that it's truly when I listen to it, when there's a description of DIB as being woke, and you
Yep.
hear
Yep.
that
Yep.
term, and the reality is, it's not political. It's really about treating your employees the right way and
Yes.
meeting them where they are. I don't, and also companies take DIB and they turn it into a project or an initiative or checking a box exercise on the
Like a
spread,
quota.
like a quota or something.
Yeah.
And it's about principles.
Yeah.
It's literally about just the way that you treat people and knowing that giving our people opportunities when you know that it's not an equal level playing field out here, right?
Yeah.
I've been lucky. I've been very fortunate in my non-traditional approach. I'm not degreed. I have an associate's degree. I have a lot of certifications, hence
Yeah.
why I really lean into that. But there's a lot of other things that people don't know about it as it stands, and they would be awesome as the next HR professional. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm about.
Yeah. You know why I think that I think it's because DEI could be it's like like people use it as like a political weapon. Like and I think that's why people not just like me but like others that don't really understand what it truly is, and what it truly does.
Right.
And it's all about not having dictatorship and being like if you support your team, if you support, more people, it's a win-win situation, for everybody.
Yep.
And I think people are just stuck in like the old ways.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of or how about this before I kind of talk about that? When do you see it change for business owners? Like, when do they realize, like, "Oh, fuck, that's what it was all about," and then they start moving the needle?
Yeah. If usually when I realize it's too late,
Yeah, I bet,
right?
dude, I bet.
Because your customers are going to change,
Yeah.
right? Um, our next generation is not having it. They are very vocal about where they
Yep,
want to go,
yep.
and this period of COVID has really changed the priorities of the American workforce. It's about how can you help support me and my whatever my issues are,
Yeah,
and help me support my family versus I should feel blessed that I'm with a Google, or I should
yeah,
feel honored that I'm with Netflix. Like, I think people are starting to realize that the reality, which is there's no such thing as job security,
yeah,
right? Um, unless you have a contract, or you own your own destiny by having your own business, right? But people wrap their individual selves into a corporate entity, and it's devastating when they get that voicemail, or they get that email, or they get that conference call that ends their trajectory, and they're like,
yeah.
what do I do?
And they
And
were,
so,
like, loyal for, like, years and stuff like
yeah,
that, yeah.
it's that. And so when you see these things, and you see that the companies, like, they want you to identify with their corporate entity, so that they of course you get more loyalty, higher retention. But the reality is, as an individual, and this is again coming from a corporate HR guy, right?
Yeah,
I've been through it. Is that you got to balance that out, regardless. Like, you got to have a balance between your so that you don't lose yourself in that because I did that and that's actually what led me on the aspect of exiting corporate America, because I never knew who I was,
yeah,
and I had to detach from it or go through trauma to really untangle all of that and realize that I had these untapped talents, leadership abilities, that I never was able to realize until I was able to do this.
yeah. I like
And
that.
and and this is also a part of that process with HR certified, is that HR people in general have this strong affinity of loyalty to their corporations, which you should have,
Yeah,
but you shouldn't lose a sense of self.
correct.
And so keeping that
Like, your
balance.
identity shouldn't be with the company. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah. I mean, it should be through the company,
Mm,
not, with it. Just like, you know what, this company is in alignment with what
right.
I feel my purpose is. But my entire purpose isn't defined by a corporate entity.
Yeah, I like that. What's the best part of your job?
Oh, um, really surprising people. Showing up different. Um, and when I say showing up different, I'm really showing up as myself.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
showing up as that person that you wouldn't think that HR person would be.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree, dude.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So it's the energy, it's the showing, and also showing that you don't have to be a perfectionist. Like, I think the best opportunities to grow is when you fail. And in this industry, it's all about perfection. You got to plan. Everything got to go in order.
Yep.
But when things don't go in order, there's so many opportunities you learn from it to be even better.
How does that work with, like, the company, though?
Exactly. Well, it depends on the culture of the company,
That's true.
right?
Yep.
There are some companies that they are unforgiving as it relates to that. Um, and that leads to my next statement, is that HR is not HR everywhere.
What does that mean?
And what I mean is that, just like that, the general descriptor is that HR is the hire, fire, interview. Um, that that is not applicable at every organization executes HR differently.
Yeah.
In one organization, it could be the typical personnel department where they're just pushing paperwork.
Yeah.
And then there's other organizations in which HR truly is a business partner, where I tell business owners, executives all the time, regardless of whether or not you have an HR person or not. Your best people that you have in front of you, on the side of you, is your finance person and your HR person.
Yeah.
Those are the two people that you need in order to be great. Oh, and then also your mental health professional. Please have that as
Yeah,
well, because you're going through all types of stresses and
that's
things.
true.
And so, an HR industry in itself is not regulated. So there's nothing that forces companies to have their HR department to be as progressive as what I just talked about.
Yeah.
And so, depending on where you are, depending on what your skill set is, depending on how you want to be deployed, you have to do your due diligence on how does that company execute HR. Because what my mistake was I went into it thinking that every company was looking to be progressive as it
Yeah.
relates to it, and they're not.
Like,
And
isn't
you
H oh, sorry,
go
go for
ahead.
it. Like, isn't it? Because yeah, because like, what I'm assuming is, like, HR is almost like the, like, disciplinary action, like, for the CEO,
Yeah.
you know? Like, it's not they're not helping the employees. They're not there to help out some of them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is the typical perception of employees of HR, that
Yeah.
they're there to protect them. But I can tell you, being in the industry, and working with others, is that HR is really working for employees. They're working for the business,
Yep.
but they also know that the business means nothing without the power of its people. So,
100%.
an example would be if a vice president is behavior is unacceptable, cursing people out, all this kind of stuff. But you got values on the wall that says respect, integrity, and teamwork.
Yeah.
There's things happening there, right? It is first, employees are seeing it, they're experiencing it. It doesn't matter what you put on the wall,
Yep.
but you got that HR person. The HR person should be coaching that executive, saying, "Hey, you're not really showing up as an example," and people are emulating that and creating employee relations issues within an
Mm.
organization, which in turn is having your top people leave.
Yes.
And these are the stats to indicate why HR is not HR everywhere,
Yeah.
because that's the progressive approach, but the personnel approach is there just to do the paperwork and to protect them.
Yeah, 100%.
So and this is part of that process. You gotta understand the climate of the organization, how they deploy it. And my role, with HR Certified, is you know utilize HR in the way it's intended to
Yeah.
be. And in the end, your bottom line will show for it.
100%, because then your top people are not leaving.
That's right.
Yeah, the LTV of the team stays. They stay there longer. You know.
Yep.
So, how do they reach that point though, where they're interviewing, or they're able to tell someone like a vice president, be like, hey, by the way, this is what we've been noticing, things like that, because I think
Yeah.
that can get
Well,
tricky.
yeah, it all depends again on the setup of the organization.
Yeah.
But typically in large organizations, um, each business leader have strategic business partners, and those business partners are usually equal or just one level away from them as it relates to hierarchy.
Yep.
And so wherever the business leader is, that HR person is too.
Okay.
And so part of that process, the insight on this is I would have one-on-one meetings with those individuals in which they're getting kind of like the state of the business.
Yeah.
But also a part of that, which should be best practice, is not best practice everywhere, is the ability to be able to provide feedback. Not only from the business leader to me, but me to the business leader,
Yes.
right? And then also, I'm asking before I even go into that environment, how open are they to feedback? Because the reality is, HR is not here to tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
It's here to tell you what you need to hear.
Yep.
Again, in support of strategy through people,
Yeah.
right?
I like support a strategy. Yep. I like
Strategy. Every
that.
time I say that, strategy, that's what it's about.
Yeah. Dude, well, it was amazing having you on the show. Where can people find you?
Yep. So if you want to follow me personally, I'm that HR guy on TikTok, and as well as, well, yeah, on TikTok, And then if you want to find me on LinkedIn, that's where I really reside.
Yep.
It's Anthony P. Howard, a whole bunch of HR certifications at the end of it. And for the business, you can reach me at www.gethrcertified.com. Now, that dated me when I said www. As soon as I said that, I said, yep, that lets you know I'm over 40.
Yeah. Dude, well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're going to take a picture.
Oh, okay. Wow. Whew.